welcome to The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And for part two of our interview, I have invited back Na'ilah moo-eye-ed. We had such a wonderful conversation the first go around. She is a artist, a poetic storyteller. She is a mystic and so much more than meets the eye. Her bio will be in the description. Just check it out because I want to just jump straight into the conversation. So for part two, here we are. And Na'ilah, will you share with us your 3 books that you wrote?
Yes, for sure. So I love it to open up with the authorship. And I have 3 different books that have been published thus far, and 2 more are coming out, 2 more children's books coming out in 2023. And then there's going to be another book coming out in 2024, which is the complete works of Nubia. And so I will put up on the screen, because I think if I hold it up, it's going to show up backward. So
Sure.
I'll put up on the screen behind me a picture of the book so that people can see, what I'm speaking about. But so first I'll share about my children's book, I Create. So in that one, in I Create, that is really encouraging our young people that they are creators, that the power of their thought, the power of their word is much more than what is commonly referred to, that they are creating their reality, they're creating their experience. And so it just really embraces them and brings them back. And for some, keeps them connected to that idea of being co-creators with their creator. So just I Create, it has beautiful imagery. In all of my children's books, I also have a glossary in the back that is really geared toward helping them increase their vocabulary and the power of their word and having a true understanding of what the words mean in the book. So that one is I Create.
Nice. Powerful, because you know what? That's one of the things that I found that our children lack is the vocabulary. I have 2 boys, and when they were little ones, we as a family used to sit down and read stories and books together as a family, a chapter a night, and always read like books that really tested the vocabulary, and they absorb it and they get it. So I think that that's really powerful, really, really powerful.
Definitely. Thank you. And that key piece, like my 2 daughters, I used to read to them for a very long time, and that was one of their most pleasurable experiences in the day, me reading. And one of the favorite series of ours is the Akhenaten Adventures. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. It's a wonderful series. But me reading it, they would just love it because I would get into it, do the voices and everything. But yeah, so in the I Create also, what you're going to notice is that there are sacred geometry references. You're going to see a lot of different beautiful things, the seed of life, the flower of life, and other geometric shapes that are really calling forth something even without the words. Just that imaging is calling them forward into a deeper relationship as a creator. And so in that book, it really is an invitation to go deeper in their creative selves. So it's one of my favorite. And you see all the images. My eldest daughter, illustrated the book. And I love keeping it in the family, and really allowing it to be something that can live beyond us and leave a legacy, if you will. So yeah, that is I Create. The next one.
Okay. I have to pause you right there because as you lifted I Create, I see the sacred geometry symbols. So are you sharing with us that your daughter is able to do the sacred geometry symbols, which I absolutely love?
Yes, definitely. So she is able to she drew them out. And then I hired a graphic designer that just digitized them for the book. So yes,
Beautiful.
every one of the
Yeah.
illustrations you see, she drafted those for me.
That's wonderful because, okay, my degree's in mathematics. So I'm one of those people that actually drew out all of the sacred geometry symbols and to do the flower of life. I mean, this takes skill. This isn't anything that you can go, oh, I think I'll just do it. You have to understand every point where the viscous pieces is formed. I mean, you really have to do it. I could sit there and share one of my artist books. It's like, this is Metatron's cube. Each one of those, it takes skill. I'm so impressed.
And it's just, you know, when people get into it, you know, which I really invite them to do, into sacred geometry and really looking at how in life, in having manifest form, you know, with true creation, there's that sacred geometry. And we spoke a little bit about it during our last interview when we were speaking about how the water, you know, when it is healthy and it is spoken in words of upliftment or words of wholeness, you know, there's a sacred geometric patterns that can be seen in the water. But in this book, you know, I Create, it really brings them into, you know, an awareness to look at it. And even if they don't understand, it's inviting, you know, it is drawing out. And so, yeah, that was my intention of using the geometric shapes. And there are some things in there as well that aren't necessarily geometric, but are just to call people forward, you know, and to serve as that reminder, if you will. So yeah, that's I Create.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Next one, It's Good. So It's Good is a story that reminds our young people that they and what they create is good, right? And so it really goes into how a young person has drawn something and is asking an adult, you know, what they think about it. And the adult references it as good. And in a lot of our lives, if someone says, oh, that's good, it can seem like less than, if you will. However, this story relates It's Good to the biblical story or the biblical telling of how God created the world and saw it as good, right? How God created life, how God created man and said, it's good. And so this is a story of excellence and using good as a synonym for excellence. And so it goes through and it speaks about a lot of different examples of excellence, and it relates the children and what they create to that excellence so that they can see they come from a culture of excellence and that they are expanding a culture of excellence through their creations. And of course, once again, it features a vocabulary list, and it features a place to have reflections and insights, a place to write down, you know, because it's about true education. You know, it's about really allowing a space to call them into thinking, not just consuming, but to draw out their thoughts, their insights, what impressions came up for you, you know. So that is It's Good.
That is so powerful. And I really want to pause for this and highlight some things, you know, especially because right now I am positioned to leave for India on Wednesday to speak to the youth conclave. And many of us don't take the time to think about what it is that we want to share with our youth. Mm-hmm. And that if you had the opportunity to share something with them, something really powerful, what would that be? You know? And for me, the first thing that I've always thought about is just the fact that they are the gift. They are the gift. Every aspect of them is the gift. And I love that you've created something so powerful that one doesn't undermine them. Like, we don't have to speak to them like children just because they are children. Okay, like their minds aren't fully developed, because they are like sponges. They absorb and they engage based on what they see, and they replicate it. So if you speak to a child intelligently, that child's going to respond back to you intelligently, because that's how you've engaged the child. You know, and to utilize that vocabulary, to share, to stimulate the thinking. These are things that a lot of people have forgotten.
Yes.
You know, that I don't really have time, so go sit in front of the television and let that become your teacher. Come on.
Yeah.
So I love it.
And as you were speaking, there's a page in the beginning, I call the owner's page, where they're called to write down their name, their desire for life, and an intention. And it gives a dedication to them to really stay connected to their radiance. And so even before they begin the journey of the book, it's calling them forward, and in some of the images you'll see in the book are really entering. And I know this background a lot like makes some of the book like fade in.
It's fine, but you can see the images. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so it's really about uplifting, and especially children of color, where it's important for them to have representation and for them to understand the excellence that they come from. So it's good.
Typically I would ask a fellow author, okay, what was it that, really led you to want to write a child's book or a children's book? But I don't even think, I think it's so obvious with you that you are an intelligent young person coming up, as you shared with us from the first episode, from the first interview. Why wouldn't you? The question to me would be like, why wouldn't you want to extend that aspect of yourself to engage intellectually another child and to stimulate a child as you were? So I just love that. In the indigenous way, we call it that you just shared your medicine,
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
And I love the way you put that. And it's like, for me, really being able to say, not coming from a place of wanting to share, but coming from a place of being called to share. I have, therefore I give, right? And so this information, it comes through me to share with whoever's on my journey, whoever's on my path. And so it's my gift, right? And in my honor. And I think when I was coming up, while I had that philosophical conversation and that spiritual conversation and the religious conversation, I think there are instructions for life that I think I would have loved to have, right? And so I just imagine the usefulness of the work that I give being those instructions for somebody, being those instructions for our young people to stay tapped in. And so I think that is one of the uses for my work. While it isn't a driving point, that is something that I can see that, it being productive in that way of providing a higher consciousness of instruction to the young people.
Yes.
All right.
I absolutely love it.
So now moving into the adult books, Atonement being this one. And so the Atonement is a wonderful, mystical, poetic journey. And it is actually 2 projects in one. And so the play, everybody's like, well, how'd you come up with the name of Atonement? And I didn't come up with it, as you will hear for everything. It came through. And I thought it was really cute when it came through. I thought it was really like, oh, you show out, because it's 2 projects in one. There's the Rise Up project in the front, and then there's the Ascension Poetry project in the back. And so the Rise Up project is dedicated to the activists. And then the Rise Up is dedicated to the light worker or the healer or the community builder, right? And so what you'll notice is the Rise Up, when you're reading Rise Up, you read it front to back or front to middle. And then the Ascension Poetry, you read from back to front, and you'll notice that you're ascending in the book rather than descending in the book. And so just as life is not linear, the reading of the book is not linear. And it features a lot of powerful pieces. It features a lot of powerful images from Kemet or Egypt. that really call people to a higher consciousness, that call people to a deeper sense of purpose, of self-realization and transformation. And so in this book, I really encourage people to read the introduction to get grounded in how the book is laid out and to become familiar with the journey that I'm inviting them to come along with me on. And you'll notice in the book, you'll see some footsteps, you know, and there's an invitation for people to walk with me as we go on this journey. And so, yeah, that is the beautiful Atonement. It has received several different 5-star reviews from independent reviewers. And I just encourage people, they can pick it up on my website. All of these books, actually, they can pick up on my website on divinevariations.com. So that's the Atonement.
So that's so beautiful in the respect that now here I do have to ask you, how did you come up with the layout of the book? I'm not even going to ask you how did you come up with the content of the book, because I know you're divine and that channel comes right through you. So how did you come out with the layout of that book, to meet in the middle, to rise up? I love that.
And so, I mean, it's so wonderful. I love how my higher self, my creator, expresses itself as me, right? And that's, I'm a doorway. You know, as you'll notice on the book, as an author, Nubia, the doorway. I am a doorway for information to come from one dimension into the next, right? And so all of it just really came through as I sat down and was instructed, okay, let's compile this into a book. I didn't know what was going in the book, you know, so each step I take, the next thing comes forward. And so first it started up with Rise Up, and then the instruction to put Atonement, then, and I say instruction, the impression, right? The thought. And as I put them together, it just the impression to have the ascension come from the back up to the front and the Rise Up, and they would meet right in, you know, the middle for the Atonement. And to me, that knocks me out. That's so beautiful and purposeful. And is such a great representation of how life works. Once we rise up out of our stories, once we rise up out of the muck and mire, learn the lessons of our life, not just having experiences, but actually learning those lessons that have been presented, then we're able to ascend, right? And so I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift that I was able to give to people.
It's beautiful because it's also the way that you wrote it. I just see the multidimensional layering right off the bat. So it's, yes, I love it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, and I love doing book readings. My next book reading is planned for March. And, you know, doing the book readings, it really allows people to go deeper in how to use the book, to go deeper in the meaning of different pieces in the book, and just different ways to have a conversation about what's in the book. And so yeah, I'm very honored and thankful for this work.
And rightfully so.
Thank you. Thank you for asking about this book.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And so I think that branches smoothly right into you, Na'ilah, as the educator. Because you talked about education being one of those foundational pieces that you bring to bear. So share with us a little bit about your entryway into education and what you love to share as education.
Definitely. So if I say my entryway into education, I honestly don't know. You know, I've been an educator all my life. And so I remember, I'm going to say the first thought right now is of me in college, right? And so in community college, well, even before that, actually, in high school, I remember, or even middle school, actually, I remember asking my teachers if I could just take the test instead of needing to go through the whole quarter or semester if I already knew the information, right? And so for me, it never made sense, the institutional ways that education is done in, especially in the United States. I won't say worldwide, but especially in the United States and a lot of the Western world and a lot of the Eastern world too, where it's about consumption, it's about stuffing in, and it's not really about drawing out, right? And so true education, educare, is about drawing out, not putting in information. And so for me, I've always been anchored to, there's something inside of me. Let's see what that is before we start the instruction of something else. And I would say in college, you know, my professors began to recognize that. My peers, my classmates recognized that. And people just began telling me, you know, like, oh, you need to teach, you're a teacher. And I remember getting readings. One reading specifically from the Reverend June Gatlin. There was one reading she gave me where, you know, it was very clear the information coming through was like, you are a teacher, you are here, you are amongst our best on earth, and you have something to draw out of those who come to you for what you give. And so my path really has, as an educator, started with me simply on the other end, knowing there was a better way, right? Knowing that this paradigm of consuming information, stuffing information in, wasn't it. And so in my whole journey, I would say that I began to embrace myself as an educator probably about 10 years ago. And in these last couple years, seeing that through the lens of being a consultant and a coach in a higher way, right? So that's where my journey stands now with the education.
I love the journey in and of itself because it just says so much about you. You know, one of the things that I teach in personal development is that people always love to come in and they evaluate and they judge and they look one way. And I love the act of looking 360 degrees and up and down, just looking every direction at the same thing. Change your viewpoint. See it from a different viewpoint. See it from a different stance, lying down, above, 40,000 feet above, you know, 90-degree angle, whatever the case may be. And every great inventor always looked beyond the boundaries. And that is something that is so not present, at least, and I can't speak for the rest of the world either, but I can speak for the United States in the school. They really teach conformity in the respect that this is how we learn, this is how everybody has to fit in one size fits all. And so I applaud you because absence from there is to draw out, absent from there is the creativity to truly, you know, draw out your creativity too, to see, okay, here's what we know. How can you take it beyond what we know? Mm-hmm. How can you take it to that next level? What are just your thoughts about the approach, let alone going beyond? And it's so absent in that education. And, you know, I don't even want to get into the teaching to the person who knows the least aspect and leaving groups of kids behind who are creative and do have the wherewithal to be able to at least draw it out or express their creativity even when not asked. There's something that's just lost. And I wonder if there's a way that we could model and create a new education paradigm, yes, that allows that drawing out of the information, that drawing out. Because I'll tell you, I know you probably experienced this too, but like in reading to our boys, when my oldest son went to kindergarten, he could read already. We didn't teach him to read. He just started reading because we had opened the book and read so many different stories to him. And then he wanted to open the book and look at the words and the pictures and everything. He just started reading. We
Mhm.
didn't have to show him certain words when he just started reading. And that age has such power. It's like the atomic blast that we contain and push down and hold into place instead of allowing it to explode
Yeah.
and be the power that it is.
And it's so beautiful. I love that example of you exposed him to books and information, and he saw his own natural inclination toward reading, right? And then you asked about, those kids who might be more creatively inclined, or kids who might be auditorily or visually. There's so many different ways that people natural ways of understanding the world that get left behind. And you spoke about, creating a new paradigm for education. And I'm currently working on a workbook for a new paradigm for education. And I think I want to reference a couple things in that. One, people, there are no victims, right? We come to this
Right.
earth plane to learn, to grow, to expand as a soul, to ascend. And so through that, we're going to bump up against ourselves. We're going to bump up against our own consciousness. And so as we bump up against ourselves, as we desire something different, we create something different, right? So there is no lack of information available. There is no lack of creativity available. It really is just about being able to hear yourself and having a desire for reality rather than for that illusion or the fantasy. And so within this new paradigm for education, it's not about trying to save anyone. It's really about allowing a different example to be shown and drawing forth those who match that example and drawing forth the information that is available now. As the earth continues to expand in consciousness, and it's the people on the earth continue to expand in consciousness as well, there's going to be new ways of doing things constantly. And so the new paradigm is a living, breathing, expanding paradigm, not just do it this way or cookie cutter. It's one that allows for intuition to be present. It's one that allows for people to stand present in engagement and to bring forth, okay, what's being called for? Are there advanced systems to put in place? I mean, because there are so many different ways of living in this world, and it's amazing how, in our consciousness, we right now collectively, not everyone on the earth, but collectively, for the most part, people are stuck in struggle, and strife. And so it's really about expanding our consciousness to something beyond that. And then all of our systems will reflect that expansion.
Thank you. That is so well stated. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yes, keep going, keep going.
No. Yeah. No, I was pausing. I wanted to be aware of the sharing the space and making sure, we're having a conversation rather than a presentation. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I have noticed, because I speak with a lot of young people all over the world, and they are smart, they are intelligent, and it's almost like our systems are so antiquated that we are not keeping up with the fact that the generations are coming in smarter and smarter and smarter each and every time.
Yes.
And so I'm loving this conversation. And, if you're an educator, please hear us, because our systems are so antiquated, they're suffocating our children. They're suffocating them. They need that. And then how many times have we heard as adults, you are the company you keep. So if you want to expand your mind, you need to be around people who think similarly. Well, what are we doing to our children if we are not allowing the opportunity for them to expand their minds? And then we go, oh, but the ones who don't get it will be left behind. No, they won't. You know why? Because they're going to have children around them expanding their minds, which gives them incentive to expand their minds. And therefore, you raise the whole consciousness. peace,
Completely.
because you are not treating them like, oh, unfortunate, you can't rise to the occasion, so let me teach at your level. No, you're saying you're going to lift up and you're going to engage and you're going to be around children all around you that are there. So therefore, you're going to learn no matter what. You may not learn as quickly, that's okay, but you will learn.
Even thinking about that, the as quickly, it's like we put in these systems that are just erroneous. Time doesn't even matter.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? When you get right
Yes,
down to it,
yes,
the sense of time is such a fallacy in creation. It's like all that matters is the present moment and how we're interacting with that. What is our intention underneath? What is our energetic output and therefore input? What is our resting point? Where are we drawing from? Are we drawing from our ego selves, or are we drawing from our higher mind? And so that is so critical to really begin to question the foundations that we are trying to build on, to be able to really assess them, look at them and say, what am I going to get out if this is what I'm starting with? Using that universal law is like, whatever this seed
yes.
is that I'm planting, that's what's coming out. So if I'm planting scarcity, if I'm planting lack, limitation, if I'm planting fear, doubt, and worry, whatever it is, if that's what's being planted, that's all that's coming out. Power's not going to come out. And so we really have to begin to address that foundation and the seeds that we are using in all of life. So in education, and we can't compartmentalize the things. We can't divorce education from spirituality or from our health or our relationships. It's all holistically. And so once we have that true paradigm, once we're resting on a true holistic foundation for life, everything else will be able to spring forth out of that foundation.
That makes so much sense, because what's the first thing we do in personal development is, when you're doing your self-realization, to accept the totality of self.
Mm-hmm.
And so each one of us, in accepting the totality of self, we're also accepting the totality of the relationship, and that it has all aspects and dynamics to it. So of course, it would make sense that in order to have a true impact, you have to look at the totality. And it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Oh, I'll try this, and I'll impact just this aspect of it. Well, guess what? This pops up and you didn't address this. So this really impacts right back to where you put all of your work and drags it back down.
Yeah.
And so, until we embrace the totality of who we are and the relationships that we hold. Yeah.
We have to go to cause, not effect. We, especially in the Western world, there is a way of addressing the symptoms of a thing rather than the cause of it. It's like, if you have a headache, if you just try to get rid of the headache, you're not addressing or even looking at what's causing that headache, right? And so within whatever the issue is, use the symptoms to go to the cause, right? And so if we're looking at a system that is producing illness and mental and physical illness, right? That is producing a disconnection, that is producing robotism, where there's just lots of robots, that is producing a consumer core and producing people that don't really have critical thinking skills. If we go to the cause, we'll begin to really see, okay, if people are not learning about health and wholeness, and people are not learning about true purpose and causal relationships, if people are not learning critical thinking skills, you just have to not try to change that paradigm. You need a whole new paradigm, because that one is working very well for what it was created for. It is doing exactly what it was made to do. And so within our work, we just get to stand as that example of there's another way, and we get to call to us our people, and then we get to go out and share with whoever is like called to this information, whoever wants to hear, whoever's like, yes, give me more of that. And then we get to build. After that, we get to build something, so I'm looking forward in 2023 and beyond. One, sharing more with like-minded people, continuing to speak and to begin to plant those seeds of building new paradigms.
Something is coming through to me right now that says, back up just a little bit to make sure that people are grounded in this conversation, right? So we are masters at treating the symptoms, and we love to disregard the point of origin of the pain and why that point of origin is causing the symptoms that it's causing. And I'll go back to, like, you mentioned the physical being and health, right? So we get a headache or we get a pain in our gut or whatever. We just want the pain to go away, right? We don't look at the system of the body that says that the body works as a whole unit that says, I'm in balance. When we were born, many of us, in balance. We don't have pains or anything. And when something's out of balance, a pain is caused. When we haven't fed the system of the body quickly enough, then hunger occurs. And then you eat, and then it comes back into balance. When you have lymphatic system is out of balance, then your lymphatic system expands, and therefore it's swollen. And then you notice outside of your body, you're having this pain and it's swollen and it's out of balance. But we don't look at the point of origin. What are we ingesting? How are we eating? Where are our emotions coming from that would cause that system to go out of balance, right? What we want to do is like, fix it. Look, so my lymph node is sticking out from under my arms or in my neck, oh, the surgeon, I'll just cut it out for you, right? Don't check to see what caused the origin of that full, complete system breakdown. And I just want to drive this home with people. And then, we act on just the one little piece of it because we haven't checked the whole system. And then we looked up and we had surgery. And then after the surgery and you corrected the lymph node and you think everything's great, then you get the news, my whole system failing. And guess what? You're not going to make it because you only address the symptom and not the cause.
Yeah.
And it's very, very hard to get people to step out of the habit and unravel that, to understand that we have to get to the root cause.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because the thing is, there are only two thought systems operating in the world. One is the worldly system, the ego, and then the other is the divine. And so really being able to know the difference between the two is going to be critical for any kind of ascension, any kind of true coming forth into awareness of yourself, right? And so when we are addressing symptoms, all we're doing is spinning in a gerbil wheel in the ego. There's no coming out of that. We can't, okay, I want peace, but I'm going to keep sowing seeds of a destruction. It's like, no, you can't get to peace from destruction. And that's where the process of true forgiveness, letting go, comes in. And it's really just a letting go of all the ideas, the thoughts of ourselves as less than what our creator says about us. And it's like, when we're addressing the symptoms, all we're doing is putting on a different costume, but we're still within that same body of information. We just covered it up with some fancy paint or makeup or outfit, if you will. But the body of information, the thought form that's at the root, is what needs to be addressed. And, in my work, it's all about, if someone is coming and wanting to learn. First, there's a process of learning about what life really is and the universal laws so that they can do an assessment to see, oh, this is what's going on. But if there's a struggle, then there has to be an assessment of willingness, right? And it's like not trying to push, like, I'm not trying to push anybody to be somewhere that they are not wanting to be, that they are not working to be, that they are not actively engaging in moving. And it's like, at some point, you have to just say, if you're unwilling to do the assessment, if you're unwilling to address those thoughts, if you're unwilling to do the daily practices, do you really want it? You know, and that's where honesty, I believe in just radical honesty about what's going on. And it's like, that's going to move you so much further than pretending that you want to do something. It's like, after a while, do you really want to do this? And what's the evidence that you really want to do this? Because once you get honest, oh, I just don't want to, we can work from there. Oh, I just don't want to. All right, we can work from there. You know, for some reason, I just want to be sad right now. All right, we can work on that. For some reason, I just want to feel like the victim. For some reason, you can actually move from that place. You can't move from underneath is that victimhood and wanting that, but you're pretending to want something different. Nothing can be done from there. And so oftentimes when people are trying to address just the symptoms, it's because they really haven't gotten to the point of radical honesty about what they actually are wanting based on evidence.
And, you know, I have to say that sometimes that radical honesty is just there and they still don't want to do the work. So, you know, and you have to accept that too. You know, how many of us as human beings know that, let's take something very simplistic. We know that white sugar is processed food. It feeds cancer. It feeds cancer, period. There's no question about it. We know this, scientifically proven. It does the dirty work.
And it's highly addictive.
You have that person, and it's highly addictive. And you have that person who goes, well, I'm too old to stop having sugar. I don't like my sugar in my coffee. Well, if I have to die, I just have to die. Radical honesty. There you go. Beautiful. You know, sometimes we know that these systems are what they are, and we're just not willing to do the work. And frankly, I have to respect that. I have to respect that, because we each have a choice, and it's called free will.
And that's why, like, my work is not to try to go change people. It's like the person who just wants to eat sugar and is not after a higher consciousness and is not trying to live a better life, I'm not going to attract to me. And they're not going to be looking for me to be a coach or a consultant for them at all, you know. But that example is so key, because that shows up in many different areas, you know, whether it's the sugar or whether it is relationships that are unhealthy, or different financial ways that are unhealthy, or if it's a way of doing our practices or not doing them. You know, that's going to show up in many different ways. And a lot of times it really is just out of addiction and habit, you know, often it is. And so really, in order, because somebody like, I really want a different life, I just don't know how to have it, I don't know what to do, you know, that is where we start with that radical honesty and that assessment, and really begin to look, because then they'll be able to recognize the different voices in the head, and they can begin to disidentify with that ego voice. Because yes, that ego voice is the one that wants to stay small, that wants to play the victim, you know what I mean? And beginning to rise above that, beginning to call forth a higher vibration, you know, is really the work, because that is going to be what allows us to make a different decision and to choose a different thought. Is, oh, okay, I see where this thought comes from, and I see where I can begin choosing different thoughts, which will then result in different behaviors and actions.
I love it, because I call that my work, I call it the wheel, the aspects of the personality, and the fact that we get to bring forward the most powerful aspect of personality, and that we can choose it, that it doesn't have to go by default.
Yes, that's beautiful.
That's the power of this, is that we get to choose what aspect can lead us through life. So once we become self-aware that we have the jealous woman, the insecure woman, the child of Enolia, and the courageous Enolia, the adrenaline-seeking Enolia, the adventurous or the discovery, then I get to say, okay, you know what? Maybe insecure women may have been leading my life, but I am now consciously choosing, as in my self-realization, the aspect of my courageous woman to start walking me through, and my discovery woman to get over my fears, and my explorer woman in order to venture out and to attract new things to myself, and no longer allow my jealous woman or my insecure woman or my little girl that is very destructive and that might destroy my relationships to lead my life. Definitely. And that's the power of our work, because we can see that. And that self-realization, another word for that self-realization is just notice.
Exactly.
Notice what aspects of life. Notice when you come to the crossroads of making a decision, and make a different decision. Notice where you have to work and shift at unraveling those same old habits that you do because they're comfortable like a warm shoe. Take the shoe off and then look where you're stepping. And feel under your feet the gravel and where it could be a little bit sharp pains. Notice when you make a decision point to say, I shouldn't step there. I should step over here. I don't even know how that feels. So I'm loving this because our work is powerful. And in coming at it in the respects of, I say it one way, you say it another way, I love the fact that it just meets right there at the same point. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And it's just like listening to you, I'm like, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, and that's going to be important because there's many ways to say things, and there's many ways to be. We don't all have to have the same path. We're all not going to have the same path. And so it's going to be important, that everybody just share from their way of understanding life so that you can find the people who it resonates with, And so for me, listening to what you're saying, in my work, I really see that as living from our story, from our ego self versus living from our higher self and our consciousness of creativity, our consciousness of the divine, a consciousness of inspiration, which is all the same thing, living from that divine aspect rather than from the worldly aspect. And so I love how you walk through that. It's like, I have this poem, 7 years old, no more, and I thought of that as you were describing, whether you're living from that little girl inside or that person who thinks everything has to be competitive or, whatever that is versus that courageous self. And so it's very powerful. It's very deep work, and I encourage people, if they aren't currently in a path that resonates, that moves them forward, where they're experiencing growth, for them to really seek it out, because it's there, it's available. Whatever, we didn't create ourselves, and we don't have to we can't sustain ourselves, but that which created us sustains us, right? And so there is an aspect of ourselves that sustains ourselves. It's just not this physical body self. It's not the ego self. It's not the personality self, right? It's the creator self. And so I want to say, really from a point of having been one who didn't really have a connection with my religion growing up, to then becoming one who is in an absolute foundation of spiritual growth and development, for all those who are seeking to really go find that for themselves. Not even, you don't have to look, but to find that by knowing that it's there and getting quiet in yourself and calling it forward. So yes, what I was speaking about is really inviting those who might not have a strong foundation, those who may not be resting in a paradigm that they feel really matches their internal calling, to simply not go out seeking anything, but to really call forth the information that their creator would like them to be resting in. Call forth, go in, get silent and go within and call forth your connection to that information. And before you know it, you are going to be walked to the path for you. You're going to be walked to the people, the information. It's going to just simply start unfolding, so that is really, I invite people who do have a strong path to go deeper in their path, and to heighten their practices, their spiritual practices. 2023 and beyond is really a time for us to walk in our divine selves. And so that's what's up for us to deepen our spiritual practice.
Well, I have to tell you, I love what you're saying. And then I'm going to complement that with many of us also know our soul's calling. We know it and we've been ignoring it. We've had this urge to leave that job that we've been confined to. We've had this urge to want to just step out and do something totally opposite of what we're doing, or to dare to take a step into it, something that's more adventurous, that isn't society's view of stability or society's view of what one should be doing. And if we honored that soul's calling, because that soul, the heart always desires to go beyond the limited belief system and the limited boundaries. The duality loves the limited belief system because that's where it feels safe. That's where it feels protected, because, I don't have to go beyond that because this is my comfort level. It's like an old worn shoe. I can put that on over and over again, and I don't have to worry or think too hard about new territories and new adventures or anything, because I'm not beyond my boundary of comfort.
Yes.
And the soul will always go beyond that comfort zone. So you're absolutely right. Invite people to honor that calling, honor their heart, honor exploring it, honor inviting it, honor it. It really, really does define a better life. It does. Because it's our true essence of who we are.
Yes.
Na'ilah, this has been such a powerful, powerful conversation, and I don't want it to end, but we're coming up on an hour. I can't believe the time has gone by so fast. Yes. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for a powerful conversation, for coming on and for sharing a part of yourself that I believe anyone listening has just learned tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Is there any last word? Yeah. Please,
definitely.
Please do share. Any last words you want to share with our audience?
Yes, just thank you again for having me on again, and for this part 2. And, for my work with soul alignment and life fulfillment is all about us being connected to ourselves. It's all about us honoring our divinity. And so, I invite people to connect with me. You can find me across all media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, my website. And I just invite you to engage, the process, and really begin, as you were saying, listening to your inner self, listening to that calling, listening to that voice that is just nudging, saying, aha, there's a higher way. There's more for life. Yes, there is. So let's be about it. Peace.
Peace. And I'll tell you, you will not go wrong with Na'ilah moo-eye-ed as a transformational coach. I am so grateful for your presence here. We are honored. So thank you, and see you next time.